morning, afternoon or evening, and welcome to another 0AD Alpha 23 replay analysis. Today's match is between myself and a guy named Lodbrog. We're both playing as Britons. We're incredibly evenly rated in that I'm 1345 and he's 1343. So theoretically should be a very even game. I won't give away whether it was an even game, but what I will say is it was a very long game, and therefore I'm going to show the first sort of 10-12 minutes, and then after we've seen the development, move on to how the game actually kind of took place, with more of the action and less of the build-up. So to start the game, I've ordered 6 women. My opponent's gone for 5. And the first building that I'm going to build is a storehouse over by this wood, and I'm also going to get a farmstead which is here by these berries. Frustratingly, I didn't realise that this bush was not like just a tree. I didn't realise it was actually a bush that would have berries on it, or I would have built the farmstead a little bit closer to those berries. I also didn't notice there was an additional set of berries just over here, in which case I would have gone for the upgrade now instead of the house that my soldiers have just built. But nonetheless, as we approach the first minute, roughly even with my opponent, although he's not actually built as many buildings, so his maximum population is still at just 22, although we've got a roughly similar population. He's got a 2 bonus from his storehouse, but he hasn't got anything from houses yet. So it's an interesting opportunity, but he's saving all that wood to build the barracks that he's now started. So if we have a quick look around at this point while we're still, we can see the map. My opponent, not my opponent, myself, has been fortunate enough to get a lot of stone and also some metal very close by. My opponent's not been as lucky with the stone, but he has been with the metal. We can look at that in a bit more detail a bit later on. But as we are approaching 2 minutes, we'll see that I am on a population of 26 and my opponent's still on 22. So I'm starting to build up a little bit of a lead in terms of population. I've been very good at keeping my town centre going. I mean, now I'm already on 31 in terms of population, the majority of which are over by the woods over here. The intention with building all of these houses near there is that if I was to face any kind of attack from his what they call it, for any kind of cavalry attack, early raiding, I would have plenty of places for my women to duck into. I'm also quite pleased with my transition here. I've done well to transition from berries to farms without any kind of delay. So you'll see this farm's already completed and I'm producing food from it, and this one will be finished in the next few seconds, which means that when these berries run out, I'll still have food coming in, which is a pretty decent show for myself there, so I'm quite proud of that. And as we get onwards, he's now building a farmstead, and he will shortly after he's done that also be looking to get some some fields going to ensure that he's got a strong kind of economy in terms of his food. Although I will say at this point he has got rather a lot of idle workers, which he could do with getting to do some work. I've produced a small group here of spearmen, and that's because we are really getting to the point where if he had any kind of cavalry attack, I would need some people to be able to defend that, because he could easily have 8 or 10 cavalry at this point. And you don't want to be facing those with just your 4 initial soldiers. So having a reasonable group of spearmen would help to defend in that point. So he's been mining stone now for about half an hour, and I'm going to try, once these slingers are built, I'm going to join him in getting some stone together. And what we also have is I'm now going to try and just get as much what do you call it, wood as possible. My opponent's already got the axe upgrade that just completed. I haven't actually started that yet, although I have just started that now, and I'm also getting the stone upgrade. And what I really need is to start looking towards getting a barracks, because now it's getting to the point where I've got a reasonable income of both food and wood, and once I get that wood upgrade in the next 20 seconds or so, that is going to be I'll have really solid wood income, which will put me in a really strong position. So at the end of the 5 minutes, my population's about 10 clear of my opponent. He's noticed my cavalryman here. I'm running him back, going to put him into the town centre, and he might think he's going to take out one or more of my women, but my slingers, who are all cutting stone, quickly took the skirmisher cavalry down. And with that, let's have a look at the map as a whole, and let's see how my opponent is getting on. So I'm just putting my my barracks down now. So my opponent's looking fairly solid. He's not really utilised this barracks yet, so he built it early, and yet again he's got a number of people just standing around, kind of idle. He hasn't had as much fortune as I have in terms of having lots of useful resources available immediately. He's got plenty of metal, but when you're playing as Britons, that's not actually that helpful. What you really need is stone. So the fact that he's got like 4 pieces of metal immediately available to him doesn't give him a huge amount of advantage, when really what he wants is stone to produce as many slingers as possible. If we look sort of over here, we'll see that the majority of the trees are actually on this part of the map, but they're a long way from anywhere that's particularly helpful. But it will become, but later on, as you know, these maps now under Alpha 23, they're much more sparse with their trees, unless you're playing the specific maps, like the randomly generated ones like this in mainland or whatever. You find that you just don't get the big groups of trees that you used to get. And when you're playing as Britons and most of the buildings cost only wood, or certainly the vast majority wood. If you take the barracks, for example, they're normally 150 stone, 150 wood. These ones are 300 wood. You really need to get plenty of wood. And that means that much later on, or not much later on, but later on, we are very much going to have to get involved in trading, because these small amounts of wood aren't going to last indefinitely. As a counterpoint to the fact that I started off with a really good supply of stone, which is, you know, a fantastic advantage, I didn't actually have anything to hunt around. I've got a small group of deer over in this corner, another one there, but there was nothing that I could see immediately, whereas my opponent actually did have a nice little group of deer around here. And if we go over to the other side of the map, we'll see that he's got similar spot there. So he may well have wanted to, or perhaps he should have been looking to get some cavalry going earlier, because he had the opportunity to do that with the deer. That was something that I didn't have. So while he may have been behind, because, or not as advantaged by the amount of stone he had nearby, he did have the chance to make an early case for building up a cavalry force. Now he's just reached the town phase, as you just see. So ahead of me, but if we look at the populations now, we'll see that I've got a 23 population advantage, and that is in part down to the fact that he's decided to use his resources on getting through to the next stage. Having said that, what he has done very well is he's instantly gone for the food upgrade. So he's got the first one, now he's got the second one. This means he'll be producing food at a really quick rate. And he's also getting the housing upgrade. I forgot what it's called. Not manors, it's the other one, home garden, which gives each of these houses like a, I think means they can hold 12. These ones probably 6 rather than 5. I forget what it is. It's a 10% bonus, or it's it might be a slightly higher bonus. In fact, I can find out just by going and looking at my own things. I don't think I'll have that yet. It's 20%, so each one of these houses will hold 7 rather than hold 5, which is actually a really decent a bonus for every one of those houses. It will save in wood, and it also means that you have fewer of these buildings that are required generally. So later on in the game, if your opponent starts knocking down houses, you can replace them, replace the population thing much more quickly. I've decided to build up my fort much like I think most people would. You build the houses around the fields, and they offer a level of protection for the town centre from rams, which is nice, because quite often like that can actually, if you get a complete layer of protection around that, that can actually be the difference between winning and losing. Because if you can store people in the town centre and the rams are held out, then actually your attackers may get sucked into the town centre and they would then be shot at while the other people wouldn't be. I built this barracks here because there's some wood around, but it's possibly a bit late actually because this wood is mostly gone. It may have been better to build this barracks near this tree here, and in doing so that would have opened up this group of trees here, which would have been a better opportunity. But having one on each side isn't a terrible idea. This barracks I think is nicely placed because it easily allows me to get troops out into this stone, but also they're not too far away from the other wood line. And I've just now, if we have a look, begun the transition to phase 2. So once that's complete, I will switch. I'll kind of stop commentating, and when you come back a few seconds later, we'll be discussing at about sort of minute 17, 18, and we can see what's happened in the intervening period, as we'll both have progressed to phase 3, and we will also start to see a few fights. So as we rejoin the game, I am just about to build a second town centre in the middle of the map, which will give me dominion over this stone. My opponent's now managed to claim this other piece of stone, but is not mining it, whereas I have claimed another piece of stone out here. So all of my initial stone is gone, but I've got 2 more things of stone, and I've got this element, and now at this point you'll see we are both producing fortresses, or we're not actually both producing them yet. I'm having just got to phase 2. Sorry, that's not a fortress, that's why I got a bit confused there. That's actually a barracks. So I'm starting to support this thing, and now I'm going to move on, and I believe this will be my fortress, and very shortly after my opponent is going to attempt to do exactly the same thing, although I'm building a fortress with 81 troops. He's building a fortress with 16, so mine will be built significantly more quickly. It's going to take another 10 seconds, whereas he's about 50 seconds from getting that produced. So if we have a look at the map, he's expanded outwards and marked his territory with these towers to try and claim the some dominion over these resources. I'm now in a really strong position. In fact, I wasn't aware of this at the time, but if we look, I'm at 110 population ahead, and with this group of troops, they would absolutely have massacred his army basically. And if we look, I think I'm only 10 seconds away from getting my first ram. If I were to keep sending slingers in at this stage, I think it's pretty much game over. These would all be massacred. Unfortunately, I wasn't aware of just what a strong position I was in, because I could throw these 10 guys at it alongside the ram. I would easily have taken out these 27 slingers with about 77 slingers and some skirmishers, and that would have probably been the end of the game. But as it happens, that's not how it worked out, so never mind. I've got 10 cavalry that are in here, and I've got, I think, another 10 cavalry in the town centre, and I've also built this this temple to make sure that I can heal up those troops. A lot of them were on the verge of death, in fairness, but which is what made me retreat and not realizing just how big a population advantage I'd managed to get. If we look at how things had gone overall, he's managed to get all of the upgrades, I believe. Yep, so he's got all of the upgrades up to the ones that cost 1,000 wood and food, and I've probably done the same. Yep, I certainly have. So we're in the same position there. I've now got a reasonable number of cavalry coming in, and I do this. I always try and build cavalry and store them in the fortress, because you want to make sure that you're not overrun by rams early on. My troops there were only going to attract trouble, so I'm glad they backed off before they did cause any real trouble for me. And we also have got, we're going to go and claim this wood, which is pretty, yeah, that's like a pretty important amount of wood. There's a reasonable amount there, and I'm just starting to build a tower here, and that will give me extra protection for this stone, which I want to be mine. He's been smart enough to build a hero. I've not done that yet, but having said that, I am in a pretty strong position. If we look at resources, I really, yeah, you can see why I need to get as much wood as possible, as quickly as possible, and also need to look at some point to be getting a market going, and I believe that's a market there. That is. So that market in the background will mean that I can start to trade pretty quickly, because it's rather important that you get trade going. And my opponent has got only one market at this stage, so he is not in a position at this point to be trading. But having said that, neither am I. I've got a group of 15 slingers there, and they need to be getting that stone rather than standing around. My troops are just carrying on here, gathering wood rather than doing anything to defend against these attacks. But fortunately, my towers are causing issues with their range. They do have the main maximum range. I'm just getting the murder holes, which means that this little area around the base that currently exists, you'll see between those two concentric circles, is an area that I can't attack in. So he's now feeling confident. He's got a reasonable amount of slingers, so he's got 80 odd, and he's sending in a ram. At this point, I've got 10. I've got 30 overall. 30 what they call horsemen that are not bothering to attack this ram, which is just insane. There you go. They finally jumped out and realised that they could be doing something. I also have got, I've got 3 rams that are available now from there. I think I just assumed that they would get those. I'm putting the horses back away, or trying to, and the hope is that we will take out this group of slingers. They're being attacked from 2 sides, which is proving reasonably helpful, but he is now producing rams at a reasonable rate. Albeit, if we have a look, we'll see that he is struggling for wood, which is to be expected. It's that sort of map. We're all struggling for wood. I can't work out whose rams are whose at this point. Most of them are mine, but a couple are his. So what we should be able to do, or what I'm going to attempt to do now, is, well, they could have done with actually just taking out this temple, but they've not taken out the temple. They're heading straight for the fortress, but with this many slingers, and also with the hero who can just tear them to shreds. That was a really terrible suggestion. That just hasn't worked at all, and they really need to, I need to use my troops a bit better, particularly ones that are very, very heavy in costing wood, because that is something that's very, very important not to waste. And you'll see that as the game goes on, with anything that costs wood, we're desperate to keep and repair or heal rather than actually utilize rather than risk losing. I think it looks like I'm building another barracks. I am. If we look at my resources at this point, I've got plenty of wood. He's really struggling for wood, so I've got no rams left there. I've got no rams, and I'm not building any rams, which is not particularly good. Should be doing that. And if we have a look towards the south of the map here, we'll see I'm sending quite a large group of troops around, and they're going to get the wood from here. So my aim is to kind of corner the market in wood, because I've got a lot more at the moment, but for my by like 3 times as much. But my opponent hasn't really got many more places that he can actually be chopping wood. He's got these groups over here, but these small group of like 10 people is not going to keep him in wood for very long. So he really needs to start trading very quickly, because if he's not careful, he's going to be very, very short of wood, just as a general rule. Now I've got a second market here, and I've got a third market I've built here as well. So what I'm going to start doing is trading between all 3 of them. I'm going to have a smaller trade route between these 2, which is very, very secure, but also I'm going to speculate a bit by putting a second trade route between these 2 furthest markets, and basically make the things follow a path around here and then around this. They'll take a little bit longer, but the rewards, the gains will be much, much better for that, for the gap that you have between them. Obviously, the bigger the gap between the markets, the more that the trade is worth. So this stone, as it was, has now expired. I've completely managed to get all of that. So those guys were doing nothing, which means that it's time for me to build another barracks, which means that I'll be able to resupply much more quickly. I'm going to get this conscription thing at some point, because I'm going to need that to be able to produce my troops more quickly. But if we look in terms of population, I'm about 50 ahead, but I really need to improve that quite dramatically. So at the moment, I'm getting all of the upgrades for the traders to make sure they're trading as much as possible, and I'm getting as many resources. And if we just have a look at what I'm trading in, it's 50% wood, 50% metal. Looking at things, because I only need the metal for the rams, really. For upgrades as well, possibly. Let's have a look at what upgrades I've got. I'll need that to get some close quarter upgrades and to start getting the body armor upgrade, because I don't have that, and I know that he does, which is going to be a big advantage. So he's got the first upgrade, and he's got double upgrades on the ranged weapons, which is great for slingers. So his slingers are now basically better than my slingers, because they're going to last longer with the upgrade. What he's also got from his hero, if we look at his hero, he also gives all soldiers and siege engines +1 armor, which I've not got a hero yet, I don't believe. No, because it's still allowing me to make one. So because I don't have a hero at this point, I should really be building that to make sure that I can give myself as big a bonus as possible, because my troops at the moment, because they haven't got this body armor upgrade, they are at a massive disadvantage to his troops. So they're going to need, and there's not that many of them either, so they're at a numerical disadvantage, and they're at a disadvantage in terms of their ability or their armor. So I'm now trying to take out his rams, and he's backed his rams off. And I'm running my horses away, because those horses are basically, their main role is just to stop rams. It's not really for anything else. And I'm just getting my troops. You'll see that he started to put champions. So he's got now as well 9 champions, a hero. His army, or 10 champions, sorry. So his army is significantly better equipped than mine at this point. But what he is going to find is that, yes, they're better equipped, but because he's struggling so much for resources, he's going to find replenishing his army much more difficult. So you'll see in this attack, if we just have a look, I've got a load of cavalry that are killing his slingers. He's managed to just about, it looks like his ram is just going to survive before he gets before the horses can kill it, but it only survives a few seconds before I pop the rams out just to kill the other ram, and then everyone else gets inside the fortress. And of his about 75 sort of troops here, they're not going to be able to take over this fortress. It's got hardly any damage. So even with these additional troops, he's just going to start losing troops at a phenomenal rate, and he realizes that. And you can see a lot of these are on the cusp of death. He backs them away to make sure that he doesn't lose them. And if we look at his things, you'll see exactly why. He's got no ability. He's got no wood at all. So he's actually better off at this stage, I think, producing these long swordsmen. No, they still require quite a lot of wood. I think he's probably started, yeah, he has managed to start trading now, which is better, but these traders are only getting 5. He's not got any of the upgrades, and he is trading mostly wood and a little bit of stone. He's got plenty of metal. He's taken advantage of having all that additional metal, but he could really do with putting some more people out here actually collecting resources, because by keeping his army like this, I know he thinks that it's having this strong central force is really important, and that's true, it is in terms of stopping me attacking. He's managed to keep all of these alive. It's still a reasonable force, but they're all kind of doing nothing while they're not while they're not fighting. They're not actually collecting resources. They're kind of dead. Whereas I've completely taken out this wood line. I've built 2 more barracks to help reinforce this area, and now I'm onto the next load of wood, which is keeping me in a strong position regarding wood. I've just about to finish getting the armor upgrade at last, which will be fantastic. But his swordsmen are doing a great job here, although they're starting to die of. Yeah, some they are actually dying, so they're not doing as good a job as I first thought. But what they're attempting to do is just basically to hack away at my army before my army can, before my slingers can take out his slingers. So he's keeping his slingers further back. But you'll see I've just produced 20 or so, or 25 horses. Now, really frustratingly, if you watch this battle, they just seem to run around a lot, but don't actually. They're trying to attack that ram, and in doing so, they're not actually attacking any of the slingers at all. So they've basically all just died on the back of that ram. That one ram, they've taken whatever the AI is that decides the route that they take. Instead of it just saying, well, why don't I just go around the left-hand side here and just attack the ram, they've gone all the way around here through a load of opposition troops, and in doing so, they've just been killed for nothing. So thanks for that, AI. I don't think they actually killed any of his troops whatsoever. Having said that, that castle is causing him a lot of problems, because he's now getting his troops healed, but he's had to back away yet again, which is not what he would have wanted to do. He's got no rams, and he's again short of wood. He really needs to, he's on 188. I don't know why, with all that metal, he doesn't just build 30 or 40 traders just to give him a reasonable number of people getting wood, because then at least he would have a reasonable income of wood. As it stands, he's getting another, I think he's getting another upgrade. Well, I don't know which one it was. What is that? That's the armor plating for his rams. So he's getting additional armor plating for the siege engine. He's finally getting some upgrades for his, I forgot what they're called, for his traders. He's tried to stop me building this third fortress here, or it might even be my 4th fortress, and he hasn't managed to do it. And now, as soon as the fortress is finished, I just populate it with my soldiers, and he's had to run away. So I've gained a little bit more territory here. I've gained complete control over this stone, which is really important. This is another temple, so I can heal my troops. So I'm gradually, although he's the one doing most of the attacking and attempting to break through, I'm gradually putting a squeeze on him. So I'm quite pleased, actually, with how that's going. But what I've really noticed about myself, particularly in this game, is there have been points where I've been a massive population advantage. Like at the moment, I'm 100 troops clear. I should really be able to take advantage of that. I've got all the armor upgrades. I've got all the upgrades for the slingers. I think I have. I don't actually have any wood again, but I've got plenty of stone, so I should just be trying to produce as many slingers as possible. If I could get, I mean, I've got here 75. If I could get 150 slingers accompanying rams, I think that would basically be enough now for me to take out his army. But I am not in that position. So I've got a guy here getting a bit excited. He's decided to go and attack this tower, so he's just going to get himself killed for absolutely nothing, and annoyingly he's one of the ones that costs the most wood. There's nothing, I have to say, more frustrating than troops just caught up just about in a bit of crossfire from that instead of just thinking, you know what, I'll go and cut down a tree a little bit further away, right, and then I won't be attacked, they instead decide to go and just walk towards the tower, and brilliantly they don't even think, I'll walk towards it and attack it. They decide they're going to try and take it over, which means they just stand there. They gradually approach it quite slowly and then wave at it until they die. Not that I'm bitter about that. So the point that we're at now is it's a pretty uninteresting, I suppose, part of the game, to be honest. So I'm going to speed it up ever so slightly to 1.25 speed. And we'll see that what he's basically going to try and do over the next few minutes, he's going to populate with as many of these long swordsmen as he can. He's not getting any of the upgrades to make them better infantry attackers, which I think would be a wise thing to do, but he's not doing that. And I've got 5 of those troops now. The problem is that I've been at maximum population basically for as long as I can remember, so I'm not actually in a position to do anything more. I could do with getting the 20 troops that I've healed out of this temple, but I've just left them there. And with the resources being back now at a reasonable position, if I can complete this fortress, which once again my troops, they're on the very, very edge. Why don't they just move to here to carry on building? They're all going to wander in and just get themselves killed. So I suppose on the positive side, that creates some more space in my army. But I've now finished another fortress, so I've got 3 fortresses there, and I've got another one here, and I've now got myself into a position where I'm going to build a town centre in this part, which is going to contain, which will now give me control over even more of the map. So this town centre, it's useful because I want to be able to cut down these trees, and in doing so, at the moment, the territory doesn't allow me to build a wood storehouse that close to it. Now it does, and now if we look at what's happened, it's right on his doorstep. He is being squeezed quite mercilessly at the moment, but having said that, I'm still not in a position where I'm actually feeling like I could go and take him down. So these guys were getting metal. They've now finished getting metal. I've got a group here getting stone, but that stone is starting to run out, so I'm going to need to think about how I get more stone, because this stone, actually this stone's got plenty left, so there's no need to worry about that. But with stone and metal, he's got plenty of metal still, but his ability to produce wood and stone is just gone really, really poorly. What I'm doing here now is only going to make things worse for him. He's got some people getting wood from out in this area, and they've just been killed, so that's not helpful for him. And now I am in the process of trying to take out, if I just slow this back down again so we can watch it at normal speed, I'm going to try and take out as many of those long swordsmen as I can, and a few of them have died, which is good, because they're going to be the most useful troops that he has. And the thing is, as with all of these sort of situations in combat, I'm actually in a position, because of my resources, where I can afford to lose troops, and he really can't. So, he had, assuming that's all of them, he had 25 of those long swordsmen. He's now got 4. He may well have some more. I'll go and have a look after this battle's finished. Okay, it's starting to finished now. He may have some more over here. In fact, he does. He's got 23 there, so he's got plenty of them. He's not horribly short after all. But I'm sending in troops from another angle now. What I could do with doing is taking my hero out of this my fortress where he's just sat doing nothing. It's not offering any kind of bonus while he's sat there. So although I've now, you can see that I've got troops streaming out of the barracks, out of the well, not out of this temple, unfortunately. Nonetheless, I really need to get those guys involved in the fight. So I've decided to populate this temple, this fortress, and from his point of view, I don't think he can quite see that. Yeah, he can't see that I'm building that town centre yet. He's at 270 population now, and I'm still at 299. I've really gifted him that opportunity to get so close because I was, 100 clear, and now he's noticed it's a town centre, and he's going to start really attempting to to not let me put that up, basically. I want to get this up so I've got control over all of these trees, and for some reason my my swordsman, who could have just gone and basically all the way around these troops, if my swordsman had decided just to attack these slingers, they would have just walked one by one, and in about 3 swings they would have killed each slinger. So they would have done all of the slingers by now, but by going after the other swordsman, it's really screwed me up. So I'm now finally getting these other troops out. They are now going to try and attack the slingers from the other angle. His long swordsman, he's managed to save a decent number of them, but it's going to be very, very difficult for me to complete this this town centre. I'm finally starting to bring in a lot of troops. Like, if all of these guys, another 30 troops there had been brought in, I'm just going to kill this ram, which my rams are doing very well at fending off his rams, and they just need to get back inside the fortress. That group of troops is now struggling. If these guys could do with, well, actually, yes, a lot of them are virtually dead, so they've decided to go and get themselves healed inside the temple. I don't think this guy's going to make it. Oh, it's my hero, and he actually is going to make it because he's actually got quite a lot of health left. But all of these guys are doing very, very little. They could be involved in the fight. And the other thing is I've got a relatively large force actually here, like combinations. So if we look at what I can see, if I just, because I think I've got a small group of horses, cavalry. So yeah, there's 10 cavalry there. There are 3 cavalry here. Those guys could go on a bit of a scout around the back here. They would find out that actually his whole trading operation is there. It's very, very difficult for him to keep that safe. He's only got 11 slingers, so he's in real trouble. He wouldn't actually be able to reinforce that, and I'm decided I need to get these guys doing something. So I've got sent off about 26 of them. So that's, I think, virtually all the skirmishers are going to go off and gather wood there, which is helpful. Although I've actually got plenty of wood, so it's not my most pressing concern. And what I need to do is to try and get a level of dominance around this area, and I will at some point in the very near future decide that I'm going to, once I've got a reasonable stockpile of troops, I'm going to attempt to build a town centre a little bit further back where maybe he won't see it. And then that will add additional pressure. Because what I could do is, with the right attacks, I could actually take over these towers. If you have a town centre that is pretty close to them, and they're not garrisoned, so this one is not, for instance, this tower, if there was a town centre very close by, would gradually lose loyalty, and eventually it would flip over to be part of my army, and that would cause all manner of problems. So he's, by complete chance, has decided to go this way as I go and prepare to make my town centre. It's actually, they're still just going to carry on building, so rather than, no, they are now finally, so they should actually be in a strong position to take these guys out. So I've got my my slingers are attacking his swordsman, but his hero, bearing in mind that my hero is just sat in here doing nothing. These are all 100% healthy, or virtually, and they've done nothing. That hero has been a complete nightmare for me. We're really struggling to kill him, and I'm losing a phenomenal amount of slingers just to stop him from just because of that hero. Basically, I've also I'm pretty distressed to say that he's attacking here as well, and this is like a real charge that he's making. He's got now reasonable groups of troops coming forward. He's going to basically be able to, or he should be able to take me out from here, albeit like his troops are really struggling again. He's got a lot of people that are nearly dead, and I brought in some rams to try and stop his ram. It turned out that those rams are gone, and now he's attacking. He's got still pretty decent army. This fortress is going to go, and so I've lost another ram, but it's not the end of the world. This ram could do with just getting into a fortress, but the Pathfinder is just woeful. It's running around not really doing anything. These cavalry and these swordsmen are in a lot of problems at the moment. But ironically, knocking down that fortress is one of the best things that he could have done, because it's released all those troops that were just sat there doing nothing. So my hero is now finally in the battle, and I'm finally getting a reasonable number of troops involved in this fight. I mean, these guys are still just chopping wood. I've got 6,000 wood. Stop them chopping wood and get them involved in the fight. That's disappointing that they haven't. I've still got my hero. I've got troops being produced 3 at a time. Lots of skirmishers. They're just going to keep going at him. And unfortunately, I seem to have set the path to just walk them into the middle of nowhere and then watch them get massacred. Looking at this, I've actually, fortunately enough, managed to resupply to such an extent that he's really struggling to keep control of that of the centre, and his population is dramatically hit. Now down here, if we have a look, this fortress has actually claimed this tower, as you can see. So I was explaining that they gradually lose their loyalty. His hero is involved in a fight now. This hero just drives me insane. So these guys, they realise something's happening, so they've stopped working, but they don't bother to attack the hero. These guys are too busy collecting stone to notice. So frustratingly, he's going to just be attacking sort of 3 people for a while, and it's only the fact that he actually sent in some more swordsmen that alerted my guys that they should be doing something to attack that guy, and they finally have. So I've rebuilt the fortress. I've resupplied. I'm now back at 275 population. I'm 100 population clear. I've got 5 swordsmen and the rest, and a hero and a load of skirmishers. Some of them have run off to just die into the towers, but I still have 4 rams in there. And as we look at this point, he's starting to realise that if I can get this ram killed, and my ram is actually doing that, it's going to finally take out... No, it's not. I've decided not to quite finish off the ram, but hopefully someone will finish off this ram, because it's virtually there. Yes, they finally got the ram, and as we start to move backwards, we'll see he's down to now sort of 130 population, 130, 125. These guys are being totally outnumbered, and he's got no way of resupplying. He's got no, well, you didn't get to see it, but he had virtually no wood and virtually no resources whatsoever, and that meant that, this group were just going to maraud onwards. I had the ability to queue up more troops, and that was it. He gave up. So That was a very long game, quite an interesting game. What it made me really realise is what great difficulty I was having actually just to to finish the game off when I'd virtually, won it. I just couldn't seem to work out how to get an attack that would be sufficiently strong that I could break through. And I think, particularly as I had all this stuff on this side, I had the two barracks, I had a town centre. I could have produced at some point a reasonable number of cavalry and just zoomed in round the sides. And you look at the way his base was set up. There's very little defence there. All of his troops were at the front. I could have pretty much I could have decimated his infrastructure. If I'd sent a ram round the side, I could have got that to smash down this market, which would have stopped all of his trading. I realised that he must be trading in quite a small area because I'd taken so much of the map. So that's something that I desperately need to improve on in future and must do so. But anyway, it was an interesting game, and what I found most interesting about it was exactly that I was saying, that it made me realise just how difficult I find it to kill games off if I don't have an overwhelming attack at the start. So the next few games, hopefully you'll see exactly how that panned out as I then made an effort to really improve on that. But anyway, let me know what you think in the comments. Hit subscribe if you want to know when new videos are coming and so on. And yeah, I'll see you soon. Take care.